Close to reality is imagination, animation, atom, atomic, fake for a reason, fake, a fossil. Extraordinary claims require extraordinary proof. They couldn't prove the evolution, so they faked it. The children of Jamaica, our prayers go out. They're going to be hammered tonight, all day by a Category 5 hurricane. And we have learned from other people how it's suggested they push those wherever they want them to go. And I guess the Haitian orphans are finished now. They need some more. That's my conjecture. I'm praying for them. It's going to be very bad. And it doesn't matter if it's not in your hometown, right? So it is a Roman Jesuit, Rosicrucian, Freemason plot. Now, today, their plausible deniability will confuse the millstoned masses towards continued global retardation as the bunso. The only thing I can compare that to Paco is like being a Filipino bunso. I'm treated special as like I'm the last prophet. I'm the youngest, whatever on the Paco. I solved all these other mysteries now. The golden age passed. I needed a new one because after the stones crying out and the light was used to freeze the titans that had to die like men into stones, I've learned how to walk to gold. I found gold everywhere. Every time I look for it, I taught people to read Revelation correctly, started teaching Golden Age Past. In 2016, started a channel called Flat Earth Nation Golden Age Past. Have, among other things, influenced the world's thought on biological. It doesn't matter what the Prince hacker says. He called me and there are witnesses and records. Geological, biological, theological discoveries. There is one thing I need your help with. The new mystery has been provided. I need to know why. Why? When you cut the branch off a living tree, why don't the leaves fall off? The next, winter can come and go. You pick up that dead branch. Sure, the leaves are shriveled up, but you can shake it and the leaves don't fall off. There's something about that connected to the appointed time when we give up this life for the life that will come. Welcome everybody to Mud Flood Was Armageddon. Mud Flood was Armageddon. Don't let them tell you anything else unless they're willing to debate you in a fair and honest way. And that means no fisticuffs. Remember this process thing that they say trust? I'm not sure we should, but if I did, I would go through that process of finding this thing, showing it, popping it open to the big screen, going here, and look at this. What's this? To this day, we're going to start a video and end it at this time where it says it's going on to this day. look at on September 11, we're going to go over a lot of treaties, and I only searched the treaties with the word Ute in it. Yeah, I did that. I did the Control-Alt-Find and looked at them all. A lot of statutes in there, but I did find that September 11th was the last agreement with the Utes. September 11 is a very special day to this ministry. Look at the information is not available, and we'll find out more about what that means. There's another one on March 6th. No information really. It had a statute. This one does too. So I looked all of those up. If we have time, I'll read them later. To myself, I won't bore you. I'll try to get the highlights. Look at how many times the Ute and the Paiute, they had executive orders. This was to take out and exterminate. They don't even give the executive order number. When you remind them how many of the 500 treaties did they keep with the Utes and the Paiutes and the rest of the world, the Native Americans? 0%. That's low. That's super low. Paiute et al. Look at, these are coming. They need executive orders. Look, for that immunity, we're going to need you to backdate this. No problem. These are all executive orders for the Native Americans. Was there a time in the, oh man, I never even heard of the Killahoot, but they made the list. There's the Colorado Ute, Bruno Agreement. I could look that up, but I had so many of these other statutes, 55. Broken treaties, broken promises. When was it great again? Hey, here's that Book of Mormon. Testified, oh, the 8 witnesses. Look, America Speaks, 1972. It's a Mormon film. It introduces Cusco, Teotihuacan, all of the Machu Picchu. And this is saying, you can trust me, Joseph Smith. Look, I'm one of the 8 witnesses, and I'm a senator of someplace. My dad's there, these other people, 5 other people from another family, it looks like. We're all Freemasons, and they all got together and say, you know, we're honorable, trust us. It's Mormon, Jesuit. How in the world could they have tricked me into voting for Mitt Romney for president? Only by running somebody even worse. So look, that they could do brain surgery back then, and that's shown in the film. They're thinking Jesus, white Jesus taught them in 72. They hadn't even tried to make it anything but a white only church when they made this video. There's your thumbnail. Kind of somewhere in here, right? No, that's not FDR walking, because he couldn't walk. Well, they decided that there is a race of Chinese. They're different than white. Lock them up. And then make excuses and find a few that you can shower with blessings, and they'll go, we didn't mind being locked up. No, as a matter of fact, we can make anything fun. We're as resilient as children while we are at war with their race. See, that's what they considered it. This guy who wrote for one of the Hearst newspapers, a viper is a viper wherever the egg is hatched. Wow. That's triggering me. I'm triggered. So in 1870, the now American-owned, 1870, America owned the Alaska Commercial Company that was formerly the Russian-American Company. It was awarded a 20-year lease by the government, who was, the former Russian-American Company, and provided housing, food, and medical care to the Aleuts in exchange for seal harvesting. So they captured them and made them slaves. However, the fur seals had been severely over-harvested, and only 200,000 fur seals remained by 1990. 1910, something else changed. Social, racial segregation. They made them slaves. They captured them, took them there, gave them bread and water, and made them hunt seals. The Aleutian men from the Kodiak and the Aleutian Islands were forcibly conscripted to work for the company for 3-year periods because they were among the most sophisticated and effective sea otter hunters in the world. Russian-American company first joint venture was the first joint venture established by the Russian Empire in North America. It was chartered by Tsar Paul I in 1799 and played a crucial role. We'll find out how crucial it was. Did you know the Imperial Russian Navy to the rescue? In 1863, large elements of the Russian Imperial Navy's Atlantic and Pacific squadrons, plural, would arrive at Union ports in New York City and San Francisco. The presence of the Russian Navy would greatly strengthen the Civil War Union cause. But why? Why? I'm stalling. Oh, look how bad our football team is. I had to show my friend. So I guess we saw that.
Printing dollars to finance deficits, exporting inflation abroad. The Smithsonian system relied on the idea that governments could maintain fixed rates while pursuing their own domestic policies, but that was wishful thinking. Economic reality doesn't bend to political promises. By early 1973, the system began to unravel completely. Nations started to withdraw their pegs, allowing their currencies to float freely against the dollar. The dream of fixed exchange rates was dead. What had begun as a grand rescue ended in quiet collapse. In March 1973, less than 15 months after it was signed, the Smithsonian Agreement was effectively abandoned. The world had entered the era of floating currencies, a world of volatility, speculation, and financial instability that persists to this day.
What is he even yapping about? What?
Monetary order. U.S. Treasury Secretary John Connally led the negotiations for America, armed with Nixon's instructions to protect U.S. interests at all costs. Connally famously told the Europeans, "The dollar is our currency, but it's your problem." It was a statement that summed up the new era. The U.S. held the cards, and the rest of the world had to play along. The resulting deal was hailed as a breakthrough. Currencies were realigned, the U.S. dollar was devalued by about 8%, gold was officially revalued from $35 to $38 an ounce. And other countries agreed to repay.
Apparently, I was born when there were 48 states and gold was $35 an ounce. What that means, that is, in my 68 years, the price of gold has gone up 100 times. From $35 to over $3,500. That's some crazy, what do they call it?
Peg their currencies to the dollar with wider trading bands of plus 2.25%. In essence, this meant that while currencies would still be pegged, they had more room to fluctuate. The agreement was sold to the public as a victory. Newspapers called it the greatest monetary agreement in the history of mankind. Nixon declared, "We have now achieved a new prosperity." But the celebration was short-lived. The Smithsonian Agreement was not a true fix. It was a political compromise built on shaky economics. The core issue, America's overvalued dollar and runaway spending, was not solved. By merely adjusting exchange rates without addressing the structural imbalances, leaders had bought time, not stability. Within months, inflation surged, trade imbalances widened, and confidence in the dollar continued to fall. Countries like Japan and Germany, whose exports were booming, found themselves under pressure again. The small revaluations agreed upon at the Smithsonian were not enough to offset their trade surpluses. Meanwhile, the U.S. kept printing dollars to finance deficits, exporting inflation abroad.
What?
The Smithsonian system relied on the idea that governments could maintain fixed rates while pursuing their own domestic policies, but that was wishful thinking.
Honkies.
Economic reality doesn't bend to political promises. By early 1973, the system began to unravel completely. Nations started to withdraw their pegs, allowing their currencies to float freely against the dollar.
Yeah, how you like them apples? So this, RJ wanted you to see this.
But what often gets lost is that these weapons weren't confined to the lab. Japan brought plague-infected fleas on Chinese cities, contaminated wells, and tested cholera outbreaks by releasing infected food supplies. In 1941, a Japanese bombing raid over Changde scattered ceramic bombs filled with infected fleas. Tens of thousands died. Locals, Japanese troops, everyone. They called it field testing. The number of victims is unclear, but trials seeking damages for survivors in the late 90s and early 2000s forced the Japanese to look deeper. They found that at least 500,000, perhaps as many as 5 million, died from the immediate and prolonged epidemics caused by Unit 700.
They call that a dress rehearsal where I come from.
31. What makes it worse? After the war, many of the scientists involved were never prosecuted. Instead, they were quietly granted immunity by the Americans in exchange for handing over their research.
Hey, that sounds like something I said. Here, let's read a few Bible verses. I had a talk with RJ for about an hour this morning. I overslept. That's why this church service is so low and late. Romans 2:14, for when the Gentiles who did not have the law by nature did what the law required, we're reading it like, it's past tense to the people who received these letters. They were a law to themselves, even though they did not have the law. Okay, what do I have here? We're going to pick it up in the next verse. Well, no, I'm going to read that to you here. We'll pick it up in verse 15. Should I refresh your memory? For when Gentiles who did not have the law by nature did what the law requires, they were a law to themselves, even though they did not have the law. They show that the work of the law was written on the Gentiles' hearts, while their conscience also bears witness, and their conflicting thoughts accuse or even excuse them on that day when, according to the gospel, God judges the secret of men by Christ Jesus, Messiah, Emmanuel. But that's pretty good. They always were a chance. The gospel was preached that all nations are going to be fairly judged. What is the problemo? Well, we better look at the verse, right? Here's that verse 14. The ethne, all the nations, not the, the Greeks. It's not naming a specific, it's saying the nations, when they have the law, Momon 3551. Okay, here's another. It's pretty much the law. A lot of rhyming was going on in this verse. He was hooked on phonics, the Apostle Paul, and he was having fun. Look, he used this word 3 times almost in a row. He's playing with the law, and he's playing with, the word, the things. He backs that up right here. He uses the word 2 times and just adds a little. It's it's this never means by nature the things of the law. It means the law, because he's rhyming the shit out of this and repeating it, because repetition is what they do, man. Here's another 351. 1, a 2, a 3, a 4. Come on. Who's having fun? But he's basically saying what's written on their heart. Who's confusing it? Who put in that it could possibly... let's go back to this verse. It started with the King James. It always does. Things contained in the law. So by people kind of go along with it. I'm glad the Berean Bible didn't. Things. Berean Bible didn't. The ESV did not. New International sure did. For some reason, I want to check that, if they have that Septuagint thing. Will that be listed under Catholic translations? It's a Greek thing. Whatever. Here's this other Bible verse I want to read. I will punish the world for its evil. Who? The whole world? And the wicked for their iniquity. I will put an end to the pomp of the arrogant and lay low the pompous pride of the ruthless. Here we go. Go, man. I'm going to back it up. He's a happy.
In Russia, they have a similar problem. They have the problem of serfdom. The serfs are a slave class in Russia. It's not identical to American slavery. In some ways, it's somewhat less brutal. But nonetheless, it affects more than 23 million people in the Russian Empire at that time. Now, Alexander II has been wrestling with the issue. He wants to emancipate the serfs.
Dude, how do you know so much about Russians?
Ask them why, and they say it's because they've been taught that
Oops,
Russian
a little early on that.
And what I've observed over the years is that most foreign visitors don't know that much about the Civil War, which is to be expected, with one exception. People from Russia know quite a bit about the Civil War, and I've asked them why, and they say it's because they've been taught that Russia...
Let's see here. Now this says, sensation in the happy family caused by the reception of the Russians at New York. Gonna fly now, yeah, fly high now.
Played a significant role in supporting the Union cause. And after doing some research, I found that indeed they did. And it revolved around a visit their navies made to both the East and West Coast during 1863, which did have a profound effect in some ways on the outcome of the war. Now, some backdrop. I think this is an important story because many people think of...
No, look, dude, it's an important story because they faked it. The Confederates, the Northerns, the Russians, the Spanish, the French, the Portuguese were all in on it, man. Yeah, and you Prince Hall Masons were in on it too.
The war is just an internal struggle which really didn't impact the rest of the world. That was far from the case. it did have an enormous impact on the rest of the world, and many nations throughout the world were very concerned about the outcome of the Civil War, and indeed,
He's going blah dee dee blah blah blah.
Poland, and again, limit its influence in Europe in general. So throughout 1863, leading up to the summer of 1863, the British and French are issuing more and more strident warnings to Russia that unless it recognizes Polish sovereignty and leaves Poland, this could cause a
Wow, that explains how that guy Pulaski, Vladimir Pulaski, made Chicago the second most populated Polish population in the world until this day. Besides Warsaw, Chicago has the second highest concentration of Polish people in the world, at least in 1985, as far as last time I checked. Anyway, this guy is about to put me into a coma down, doobie doo down, down.
war. And the Russians are responding in kind, saying that they view this,
Doobie doo da.
placing them in places like New York and San Francisco. They'll be very close to the major shipping lines in both the Atlantic and the Pacific, giving them a perfect.
Blah, blah, blah. What I'm trying to say is, did you know that Russia saved the world and helped the United States and Abraham Lincoln because they were in business killing seals? More to come on that later. Here's another Bible verse. The cow and the bear shall graze, their young shall lie down together, and the lion shall eat straw like the ox, the nursing child play over the hole of a cobra, and the weaned child shall put his hand on the adder's den. They shall not hurt or destroy in all my holy mountain. So don't tell me this was something that you're expecting to see over the whole world. And why don't we see it? Blah, 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 whatever your dumbass comes up with based on what the murmurers are telling you. The earth is going to be full of the knowledge of the Lord as the waters cover that sea. In that day, the Lord will extend his hand one more time, signal for the nations. Here, now, what is this all about? The jealousy of Ephraim shall depart, and those who harass Judah shall be cut off. They are not going to be jealous of each other. Swooping down is going to happen, plundering right there, as per usual, utterly destroyed. Obviously not the secret message language of heaven would be the tongue of the Sea of Egypt, because that's been utterly destroyed. That's gone. Scorching breath. But verse 16, there will be a highway from Assyria for the remnant that remains of his people, as there was for this other nation, his inheritance, is what he calls it, when they come up when they came up. Wow. Hey, check this one out. Never to be inhabited or lived in for all generations, like Sodom and Gomorrah. You know, that Jerusalem's called Babylon. You know, hey, the glory of the kings, animals lie down, horses, houses full of howling creatures. Yikes. Here's another one. The earth staggers like a drunken man. The earth sways like a hut because its transgressions messing it up. Rises, falls, will not rise again. On that day, the Lord will punish spirit beings, human beings. Hey, this is not my home. gathered in a pit, shut up in a prison. Yikesity, doodah, punished. Moon will be confounded. Must be a spirit thing. The sun's going to be ashamed. That makes no sense unless it's a spirit thing. For the Lord of hosts reigns. First, finally, something makes sense. Finally. Here's Isaiah 24:1. Look, behold, the Lord will empty the earth and make it desolate, and he will twist its surface and scatter its inhabitants. It doesn't mention anything about its foundations being moved. No, they're shaken. And that's probably what made the earth go empty and become desolate. In my very unhumble opinion. Okay, so I guess I wanted you to know that after that, it's looted, plundered, spoiled. It is defiled. They didn't know, their heart is only going to accuse them. They were doing those 4 things that you weren't supposed to do. Everyone taught them and everybody knows it, man. 4 things. Tear and the pit and the snare. Snare. Earth broken. Earth split apart. Violently shaken. Staggers like a drunken man. A little more context there. Here's that area that they claim, the Mesopotamians. I guess these were those Gentiles whose hearts could either accuse or excuse them. Yeah, good luck finding those cities. They're buried forever. But, they're talking about people from the Bible. Cyrus, Esther's husband, the king of Persia, who had miracles performed that proved the God of the world resided on a mountain called Jerusalem that was going to be na 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 na, hey hey hey, goodbye. These guys are mentioned in the Bible. I'm waiting. Where's that Cyrus scroll? Should we look at that? I'm only going to give it 5 more clicks. We'll talk about it later. Here's the Berluti. I wanted you to mention, there's a better way. Hey, there's a nice store. 1895. Look at that guy. They're still working it. That's pretty cool. He made the Berletti knot. It's a better way to tie your shoe. It takes about a half a second more, but they didn't go with his way of doing it. That's how new even the bunny ear knot is. Something like that. What is this thing? Oh, this was the internment of the Japanese. I probably had that set up on something. Probably the court date of how I found out about all this. When I found out, because when they got their reparations, they also gave reparations to the descendants of the people the United States kidnapped for the Russian American company. This is the only 2 times the United States has ever given reparations. You hear the way I said reparations? They lived on this island. It was awarded them. Go get them. North American Commercial Company. Social and racial segregation. This was this fur treaty. They probably broke it too. They really backstab a lot of people. So the Siberian fur trade localized. Here you go. Here's a few pictures of it. Let me know if you want me to make any of them bigger. What are you talking about? My white foxes are tons better. That is a lot. That's a lot. They got to have them. Hey, you run for your life. Too late. Comfy and warm is what it looks like. But I don't know. I don't know if they did it right. I don't think they did anything right. What's this thing? Go, man.
63, one in New York City, the other in San Francisco. He explains that the presence of the fleet served to support the youth.
Hey, you're supposed to be going, man.
63, one in New York City, the other in San Francisco. He explains that the presence of the fleet served to support the Union and to deter the...
This evening, our proceedings have the character of a celebration, and we're here to remember, to mark an anniversary, and to express gratitude for the arrival of the Russian Baltic Fleet in New York City 150 years ago today, to the day. This is the exact anniversary when the Russian Atlantic Squadron arrived in New York City. It was followed a few days later, on October 12th, 1863, by the Russian Pacific Fleet coming from Vladivostok and arriving in San Francisco. These events represent the only foreign military assistance received by Lincoln and the Union during the course of the Civil War.
Well, well, Webster, it sounds like that's all he needed.
Context between the future United States and the Russian Empire came with Benjamin Franklin as a scientist. He was a friend of the Russian princess Vorontsova Dashkova. She was a famous political and cultural figure in Russian society. Not be misplaced. Stand by him, and he will, as he has often declared to me that he will, stand by you. And indeed, if we look at Russian history, the old maxim, pacta sunt servanda, you got to maintain your treaty commitments. This actually is very frequently the case.
Broken by the United States. Russia didn't know. You know why? They're suckers. And now they're mad. You know who else is mad? China.
Who consider themselves the leaders of civilization. Lavrov says this is a precursor of the UN Charter. Now, in conclusion, two little portraits of a couple of Russians who contributed to the Union side in the Civil War. First of all, we have Colonel Charles Desarnaud, A-R-N-A-U-D. He is an officer of the Russian intelligence service. He's an experienced military engineer. He was sent on a reconnaissance mission by the foreign ministry, by Gorchakov, I guess.
Look, if you can't trust a Russian spy, who can you trust?
To the United States in June 1860. And he goes to Ambassador Stuckel, the Russian ambassador, and Stuckel tells him that the main...
Stuckel sounds crazy, you know, like a Bavarian name.
main Confederate effort of 1861 is not going to be made against Washington, but in the Trans-Appalachian West. So Desarnaud goes out to St. Louis and meets with General...
You remember those treaties? That's when they were killing all of the Native Americans out west. The Confederates, France and Spain were fighting over Mexico and all of that, and Texas and
John C. Fremont, who at that point is the commander of the Western Theater. This, of course, is the Pathfinder of the West and the 1856 Republican presidential candidate. And Fremont is also somebody who wants to end slavery as soon as he can. So soon that Lincoln has to disavow some of the things that he does because he gets ahead of the border state curve, as Lincoln saw it.
They were trying to start their own country.
Now, one of Fremont's biggest concerns is to prevent the Confederates from capturing Cairo, Illinois, right? Written Cairo, but Cairo, Illinois, and invading the rest of Illinois. Around this time, Lincoln had stated, if the Confederates can invade Illinois.
Wow. So now you got something to think about. What role did they play? They saved the day. The relations were not always bitter. They said back in 2017, you know, they were trying to soften it. Maybe this is Russian propaganda. Hey, we helped you 150 years ago. How about that? So here's the deal. It started early. It was the guarantee. It's coming out. You're going to be hearing about it here second, I guess. Maybe you already know, some of you. I can't break every news story. Now, this does not look comfy unless he's got something underneath that wool. That helicopter is distracting me. So who are the Huguenots? They have a Huguenot cross believed to have been a sign of recognition among the French Protestants who still believed in the Trinity, taught by Luther and Calvin, patterned after the order of the Holy Spirit, worn by some Catholics. You know, this was all a part of the plan to convince the world there's a globe and a Trinity. The Huguenots, don't buy into their Protestant blah blah, because this is a setup, man. Remember how many people in Poland helped win the United States too? How do you think the St. Mary's churches and hospitals were grown up around the St. Joseph's orphanages everywhere in the United States? Even though the KKK going like, what's going on here, man? I hate to be on their side, but I'm not on the KKK side because they're dumbasses too. What's this? This guy, he was a Calvinist or Huguenots. The Church of Bologna. We looked at that. I asked last night, can Bologna be full of itself? So they did it. They killed all the Protestants. They started a 100-year war over something that does not exist. Trinity. Is the Pope the Antichrist or not? They killed them all, man. That's a lot of warring going on from 1562 to 1598, right? And this was the Julian calendar, not the Gregorian. So the end is 1666. Hey, what? I don't think that's John Calvin. I don't even know what they're talking about. Look at that guy. He's supposed to be like, there's another picture of him supposed to be like, oh no. Oh, they're hanging him right there on the wall. It was her fault. It really was her fault. She's a widow that didn't want to let go of power and did anything she could. On St. Bartholomew's Day massacre, she was burning people alive so that people could come and celebrate being Roman Catholic. And she ended up, they're going like, they're screaming so much, it's not fun. So they sewed their mouth shut so that, well, they wanted to light the way into Paris. She did it. She killed them all. But, you know, it's not like since 2001 when all of a sudden they said, no, women are good, men are bad. Women can beat up men. This is how you roll out somebody's intestine to make them suffer more. That's how serious it got at the end of the golden age. They were doing this in the name of Christ, protecting heresy. It's horrifying. I know it's supposed to be. She didn't care. She after the next morning, after they entered the town with the torches of the human body, she took them on a tour to say, do you want this to happen to you? No, they did not. They did not. So they wanted to thank her for doing this. And this is a toned down PG version. You saw how they can unwind an intestine. They didn't want people to actually know. Well, kinda. It's the violence is being undersold here. All over nothing. Huguenots in France, 30-year wars. Slattery, great Roman Catholic name. I dated a girl on and off for 5 years named Jane Slattery. Glad to have known her. More Huguenot stuff. They did it. They messed up Protestantism. They're not the heroes. Go.
The natives bowed down and worshiped Columbus, Cortez, and Pizarro upon their arrival here, each time thinking Quetzalcoatl had returned. And so we come full circle to the question of the bearded white god, the most widely held legend in this.
1972, this is what they taught the world. The Mormons were in on it. Look at the intro. Nobody knew anything about ancient aliens. Gold of the gods and things have not come out to give another view. This is the world being introduced to the 1972. Hey, we're going to have new money, new gold, new Bretton Woods. What was that agreement called? That one that you didn't know about and I didn't know about? Not the Bretton Woods Agreement, the other one. The one that failed. Smithsonian?
This is a tomb of an ancient leader buried in the ruins of Palenque, here in southeastern Mexico. According to some scholars, this area and the northern part of Guatemala were the cradle of the great Maya culture. Who was this man? And why was he buried in?
And why did Columbus pretend to be a white god?
Of Christ. Some scholars feel that the ancient inhabitants of Central America developed a culture equal to that of the great cultures of the Old World. As we try to visualize the people who lived in Central and South America when these cultures were in full flower over 1,000 years ago, we are intrigued by the comparison with their descendants, the unpretentious and friendly people who still make their homes here.
Who believed you the first time?
These earlier cultures. Research has shown that these people were deeply religious. And among many of the cultures, one of the most persistent beliefs was one concerning the great sky and life god called Quetzalcoatl. Although the god Quetzalcoatl is given various names, the illusion is much the same. A fair, bearded person with blue eyes and wearing a light robe. He counseled the people, taught them, and left with the promise that he would someday return. Quetzalcoatl means feathered serpent, and this symbol is seen.
This is a devious plan. Simply because Satan is smarter than us humans doesn't mean that we're stupid, completely stupid, and can't figure out we've been played.
In ruins all over Mexico and Central America. It is believed that the feathered serpent is a degenerate symbol created by later peoples to perpetuate the memory of this great deity who left as mysteriously as he came. When Columbus landed in the New World, many natives thought that he was this great white god who had returned.
The people of this land believed very firmly that I, Cristobal Colon, with these ships and crew, came from the sky. And in such opinion they received me at every place where I landed. And to this day many of them are of the opinion that I came from heaven. And others went running from house to house with loud cries of, "Come, come to see the people from heaven."
The Spanish conquistadores under
Now's the time when I make sure I'm sharing, having the reputation of not doing it right. So good to know that so you find an innocent people, you trick them into thinking you're a god because that would help your debt in the wars back in Europe. So you let them think you're a god. What do you do with that
Cortez
information?
experienced the same type of welcome from the great Montezuma and his people after they landed in Mexico. The crafty Cortez, taking advantage of the legend, told the chiefs he was indeed sent by Quetzalcoatl, and their belief in the great white god was so strong, it is recorded that with this joyful news, they wept for a long space of time and could make no reply. Cortez rode back to Spain, describing large cities of 50,000 inhabitants or more. He mentioned towers of heavy construction. He described aqueducts and water systems of great size and efficiency.
He was describing their star fort system.
Just outside of Mexico City, Teotihuacan exemplifies the high degree of civilization.
So they turned this into a white power thing. They took it over and they didn't care because they were happy that the white god came to save them. They built all these walls, but they needed the white god.
Still in use today.
Applesauce.
The coastal plains, thus watered by mountain streams, produced many staple products, including cotton of such unique content that botanists concluded to be a hybrid combination of the old and new worlds, and was most likely brought to the Americas by ship or...
All right, how do they twist this into some bullshit?
Discoveries have been made. Such as this possible baptismal font. There is
What
much
is the semantics of possible?
evidence of a highly organized priesthood in their religious practices. This and other findings indicate that religion was the very center of their lives. These early Americans understood the creation of the world, the Great Flood, the closed ark, the building of the high tower, and the confusion of the languages, much the same as they are found in the Old Testament. Scholars obtained this knowledge from the works of a royal Indian prince, Iztaccíhuatl, who was taught the Spanish language by padres who followed the conquistadores. One of these Spanish scholars, named Sahagún, translated the ancient traditions of life after death, fasting and baptism, all basic Christian doctrines. Most scholars today believe that the American Indian is a mixture of many races and blood types. Stone boxes, for example, have been found both in the Old World as well as the New. These boxes often contain gold, jewelry, tools, or other valuables. Compare this box discovered in Mexico with the one found in Persepolis, Iran. Then in the year 1823, a stone box, much like those you have seen in Latin America, was unearthed in the side of a hill near Palmyra, New York. The stone box was found to contain ancient gold plates, with strange engravings upon them, much like those found in Iran. As we study the stone box at the temple of Kukulkan, another name for Quetzalcoatl, we see a box very similar to the one Joseph Smith described. Speaking of the lid of the box which he found in New York, Joseph Smith said, "This record, 8 of them signed the following statement. Be it known unto all nations, kindreds, tongues, and people, unto whom this work shall come, that Joseph Smith, Jr., the translator of this work, has shown unto us the plates of which hath been spoken, which hath the appearance of gold, and as many of the leaves as the said Smith had translated, we did handle with our hands, and we..."
They're all lying Freemasons that want you to believe this.
The Book of Mormon also speaks of continual warfare between these two groups. The actuality of this is borne out by
Look, that's what they consider the bad guys.
the numerous fortifications and weapons found in Mexico, Central and South America. Metal weapons, many of which are similar to those used in the Old World. Christ's visit to this continent, that his story was repeated and handed down by word of mouth for centuries. Many believe that the legendary Quetzalcoatl was, in fact, Jesus Christ.
Many were called, few are chosen. Hey, this is nothing to do with anything. Go.
This is a stingray off the coast of Rhode Island, a massive stingray that surprised a lot of researchers. WBC's Courtney Cole joins us live in studio. And Courtney, this is not something you see every day, that's for sure.
Whites to a variety of shark species. We've got lobsters. We've got a whole bunch of things. So for us, it's a little like going to an aquarium. You know, we've got about a dozen studies going on here at the Atlantic Shark Institute. And this is the one that people really have a lot of fun with and a lot of interest in.
Now, last month, the same camera captured a great white shark searching for food less than 3 miles off Block Island. Researchers called the find a needle in the haystack water during summer months, but when they head south when that water temperature cools off. Very cool.
Vesuvius. Look when Vesuvius lived. He's another one of these maniacs that people listen to that are trying to make a living, spread the word, talk about Jesus, doing what's right in their own eyes, yet they're using Josephus and people that compare. I went over a lot of verses that talked about it was a judgment on the world, not only Jerusalem, the Rome's against the Jerusalems. No, it was a worldwide judgment. Eusebius, Josephus, they don't believe that. They don't teach that. This is made up, which is why I find these things so frustrating. Oops, that's not the one. All right, hold on. An hour in, it's not like me to mess it up. So I'm quickly duplicating so you don't have to see me going like complete history. Maybe I watched this on the same channel. I want to look at my history. America Speaks, the Russian thing, how to tie a shoe. White officer shoots black FBI agent 10 times. He was the only black guy on the crew, and when she saw a black guy, she opened. Here we go. That didn't take that long. Not as bad as it could have been. Only one person dropped off.
The Jews after Christ, the crushing weight of famine. The final siege of the Jews after Christ, the crushing weight of famine. When Nero had been master of the empire for 13 years, the business of Galba and Otho occupied a year and a half.
And it comes all the way down to...
Very little time later, brought on them God's vengeance.
I wanted to read that last
from the
page.
sword, and in other ways, I think it necessary to mention only the miseries they suffered from starvation, so that readers of this book may have some knowledge, at least of how their crimes against the Christ of God.
See that he's at the very bottom. A very little time later brought them God's vengeance. Come then, pick up once more, it should have continued, book 5 of Josephus, which might as well be called Hoaxephus, histories, and go through their tragic end. He also mentions Hoaxephus up here. You see where the mouse is? Everybody that learns their version of post-millennialism, where they describe something happened between Rome and Jerusalem, have not had their eyes opened fully yet. And their heart will accuse them on that day.
A very little time later brought on them God's vengeance.
Now, Adam Unchained is new, relatively new. Got 8 videos, has charts all about the Revelation, 20 little season, but he does not, confused.
In 1071, the Eastern Roman Empire suffered a humiliating defeat at the hands of the Seljuk Turks. Up to get 50% off your next 3. The nephew of Isaac Komnenos, yet another Byzantine general turned emperor. His short reign ended with an illness that would force him to abdicate the throne to a member of the massively influential Ducas family, Constantine X. Fully realizing the massive power of this aristocratic family, Alexios understood from a young age that it was better to
And they're going to go all the way up to Peter the Great, built Alexandria, it's Russia. What?
But for the lowest social castes as well. In 1096, a massive unorganized army of Western...
Well, he means 96 is when they start their fake history to fake their post-millennial Jesuit taught. His name was Scalazar, Reverend Luis Scalazar, Jesuit priest who taught the world Romanism in the post-Protestant Reconstruction, where they needed to get Protestants to fight about the Trinity instead of they're continually calling the Pope the Antichrist. Go!
European peasants, led by a man named Peter the Hermit, entered the Byzantine territory, making sure to plunder and terrorize the local Orthodox population on their...
You're either all in on this is all a lie. Here's all those treaties that how many did the United States keep of these? None. We break every treaty. Pick a time when you want to make America great again. I'm scrolling through fast. You could stop and look at some of them. You could look it up yourself. Bretton Woods Agreement. Where is that one, the Smithsonian Agreement? If you click on the Bretton Woods Agreement, yeah, it sure made the price of gold go up in 1970, but where's the Smithsonian one? Huh. Live coverage right now. How bad is the hurricane in...
In an earlier discussion, they said, it is worth stressing there is very little practical difference in the overall impacts of a category or category 4 or category 5 landfall, and Melissa is expected to be at least that intensity when it moves over Jamaica early next week.
The island as a category 4 hurricane. That is what is projected.
It is going to stall over these islands because the evil Moloch worshipers of this world, who basically did this to us, need fresh sacrifices. The treaty clause, is that going to tell us about the Smithsonian agreement that rushed the Bretton Woods agreement? They had to do something going back to the Articles of Confederation, reach back, pull a rabbit out of their hat. What is a model treaty? Oh, that's the plan of 1776. I think it was evil Rosicrucians, Jesuits, turning into Freemasons and John Birch Society members. These guys did it. They did it back here then. They all believed in it. I think that they were all in those. What? Who are these people? How come I haven't studied them yet? There's always something new besides why, when you cut a limb off a living tree, do the leaves not fall out, even when it's obvious the leaves are shriveled up and aren't going to work anymore? They don't drop off because they just don't. Did they incite this? Indian, Native Americans attacking Native Americans? This was not that long ago when they were breaking treaties, those information not available, executive order not reproduced. Kill them all. Not that long ago. In a racist white man world that had the one drop rule, where the longer they hid, they came up with ingenious ways to keep their hidden children safe for as long as possible. I doubt if they used the bunny ear knot like us knucklehead, globe-hearted, trained, groomed. What is the USA Law link? See? You click on that link and it didn't open up. See? The link's provided. Can you search it and get anything? Treaty with the Ute from Oklahoma State, not in Wikipedia, made and entered into Washington, D.C., and they took one Native American, got him drunk, sorry, Chief Ouray, and he signed a treaty saying he represented all of the Utes in all of the West, which was drunk talk, crazy talk. So there is one. I'll read it, look at it later. Here's another one. I'll look at that. These are going to take some more study. I thought they would open up to PDFs. So the Treaty of Tripoli, though, it has an interesting quote I want you to read if they left it in here. The Bey is the king who the United States paid tribute to. The Barlow translation submitted the English text, which has always been deemed, United States has always deemed it the text. That as of 1931. The treaty had spent 7 months traveling, finally got here and it established, be it known that I, John Adams, second president of the United States of America, having seen and considered the said treaty, do and by, with the advice and consent of the Senate, accept, ratify, and confirm the same and every clause and article thereof. We make no arguments. We will observe and perform with good faith what you require of us. We're going to pay you all the money you want. The president was empowered by everyone to enjoin and require all persons bearing office, civil and military, within the United States and all other citizens and inhabitants faithfully observe that Tripoli is in charge for now. official records show that the treaty was sent and ratified 2332. Well, that would be a palindrome if you wrote it down. And there is the treaty. We could read it. It talks about the Bay even wanted them to send him some watches every year. Send us some of those nice watches that are made in England. Wait till you're going to have to read this by yourself. But it was a complete folding. When did you want to make America great again? When are you going back to? When they were Bacon treaties, and the only treaty that they ever kept, at least until the War of 1812, were these treaties, the Barbary Wars. We paid like a bandit until we said, we ain't got no more money. And England said, what? Let's start a war, the War of 1812, and let's go take over. Let's go take over the Smithsonian, burn every record that, and only Dolly Madison saved the picture of George Washington and some silverware. And somehow the backups of all our records exist to this day. No, they don't. No, they don't. This is one long, continuous plan to convince you it is not a flat earth nation, that the golden age is not past, that the Trinity-loving Roman Catholics can be ecumenically merged into the Noahide laws, where Mormonism, Roman Catholics are accepted as a standard of Christianity that should be enforced upon the world because it works. And really, they still believe in evolution, but this works for your social contract that they will enforce upon you right here on the flat earth nation with its golden age past, because the mud flood was Armageddon. That's why me and my friends are never going to tell you anything else. Why would we? God has called us to have your best interest at heart. We know we're called, chosen, striving to be faithful, so that we're not like the people who knock at the door and Jesus says, I never knew you. Many are called, few are chosen. How do you know you make it? You die in faith. Amen. Hallelujah. Aho. Aloha. Arrivederci. Ciao. Sayonara. Auf Wiedersehen. Nakame. Adios. That's how the Paco likes to say goodbye.